Over the last several years, I get the sense that in Canada and around the world, there's a rapidly growing awareness of the Arctic and Arctic issues. I'd like to start today's Ignite session by providing some context about the Arctic and about Arctic science here at the museum. So the Arctic can be defined in different ways, like by the Arctic Circle shown in blue, the blue line, or by the 10-degree isotherm, which is the red line, the line above which the average temperature in July is less than 10 degrees Celsius. And the global Arctic comprises parts of 7 northern nations. The Canadian Arctic, shown here in blue, represents about 35% of the global Arctic and makes up about 40% of Canada's landmass. The Arctic is a huge part of our country, and about 65,000 Canadians live there. The Arctic in Canada is synonymous with Inuit-Nunavut, the Inuit homeland in Canada, comprising the land claim regions of Nunavut, Nunavik in northern Quebec, Nunatsiavut in northern Labrador, and the Inuvialuit settlement region of the Northwest Territories. Carbon dioxide concentration in the global atmosphere continues to rise. Shown here in blue and red are monthly measurements taken over a 10-year period from 2 locations in Canada, and the strong upward trend is clear. Responding to increased greenhouse gases, our planet is clearly warming up. In recent decades, shown in the red circle on the right, annual mean surface temperature has been higher than the average annual mean surface temperature of a 30-year reference period, with a clear, long-term warming trend. The rate of warming in Canada, which is shown by the slope of the blue line, relative to the global 30-year mean, is more than twice the rate of warming for the globe. That's the red line. And the rate of warming in the Canadian Arctic, which is the gray line on top, is about 3 times the global rate. The Arctic is warming faster than anywhere else on our planet. Climate models predict that under both low and high emission scenarios, the Arctic will be substantially warmer by the end of the century, possibly up to 10 degrees warmer on average, particularly in winter. In response to warming, Arctic summer sea ice is on a downward trend. Ice extent in the Arctic Islands, for example, is decreasing by nearly 5% per decade. The 2018 minimum sea ice extent tied for the 6th lowest minimum on record. On land, the tundra across much of the Arctic is getting greener, as shown here by satellite-derived data that measures change in vegetation density from 1982 to 2017, a 30-year period. But in some areas, like the northern parts, there's a browning trend where plant productivity is decreasing in response to warming, so it's really complicated what's happening. More than 21,000 species from across the tree of life are native and adapted to the Arctic. Climate change is already affecting Arctic biodiversity in profound ways, and there's no doubt that continued warming will pose major challenges for Arctic species in the future. The Canadian Museum of Nature, Canada's National Museum of Natural Sciences and Natural History, has been engaged in study and documentation of Arctic biological and mineralogical diversity for over 100 years, beginning shortly after the building that we're in right now opened in 1911 or so. The museum's Arctic work began in earnest with the Canadian Arctic Expedition. As World War I was being fought across Europe, the expedition was exploring the northwestern North American Arctic and often living and working alongside Inuit that live in the region. Through the last century, generations of museum scientists have made major contributions documenting the natural history of the Canadian Arctic. Here's museum botanist Erling Porsold up in the top right, and his brother Bob, middle right, collecting plants around Great Bear Lake in 1928. And of course, all those specimens are in the museum right now. Examples of other major museum figures include, through the years, include ornithologist Percy Taverner, and ichthyologist Don McAllister, who built up the museum's Arctic bird and fish collections. And Dick Harrington there in the bottom right made major contributions to knowledge about Arctic animals during the Ice Age. Through field exploration over 100+ years, museum scientists have built up a world-class collection of more than 14.6 million natural history objects, about 300,000 of which are from Canada's Arctic. Our Arctic collections are among the best in the world and the most comprehensive in the world for that region of the globe. They represent a critical and irreplaceable baseline of knowledge of the diversity and distribution of life in the Arctic ecozone. We're certain these collections will continue to grow in importance as time marches on and as the Arctic environment rapidly changes. The museum continues to be a global museum leader in Arctic research and collection expertise. Our Center for Arctic Knowledge and Exploration includes experts in diverse disciplines working on projects of national and international relevance. Tonight, you're going to hear from several members of our Arctic team here at the museum who continue to explore the Arctic grow our Arctic collection, and generate new knowledge through research about the Arctic in the present and in the past, and in deep time when the Arctic environment was much warmer and much different than it is now. The challenges confronting Arctic biodiversity in Canada are enormous. At the Canadian Museum of Nature, we want to transform the way people think about and value the Arctic, and we want to help them understand it and know why the Arctic is important to Canada and to the world. Thank you.